What's up, Lemon Heads? Welcome back to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. I'm Emily.
And I'm Crystal.
And this week we have a very special guest that's going to talk all things PR and specifically how it relates in the home service industry.
We really have the privilege of interviewing a seasoned public relations guru. And I know some of you might be thinking, what's the difference in what Lemon Seed does and what this seasoned public relations guru does? Well, we're going to tell you all about it. It's going to be epic. Let's sip some lemonade.
Let's do it.
All right, y'all. I feel like super honored because I've never really actually gotten to meet Miss Heather Ripley, but I've saw. Welcome to East Texas. I have seen so many great bits and pieces of advice on the good old Facebook, but I'm like, I have got to get to know this chick because it's just such good advice. It's very sound advice. And also like some of the other vendor partners that I love to partner with, I'm like, how are you guys doing this? And like, we use Ripley PR. So I had to get to know her. And once I did, I was like, okay, she's got to be a guest on the podcast.
And I can even tell because we're getting to video chat with her right now. So we can see her. And like, even what's on her background of her wall, you can tell like, I can tell those are some points and like your values that you guys live by. And so I'm like, okay, this is going to be good stuff. She's got it plastered everywhere.
Yes. So Heather, for our listeners, I don't know how they might not know who you are, but in case they don't, will you tell people kind of who you are and what you bring to the podcast today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. So again, I'm Heather Ripley. I founded Ripley PR 10 years ago. Last week, actually, we celebrated.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm also the author of a book called Next Level Now. It is a book about PR specifically for home service contractors. So as of last week, that is available on audio now.
Awesome.
So lots of
I got that audio book.
Yeah.
I screenshotted it and sent it to her.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I got my start in PR actually by marketing. I was working for a department store a long time ago and fell in love with copywriting and eventually ended up as a freelance journalist for a local paper when I lived in Florida. And that's how I kind of got into PR and started working in the home service industry in 2008 during the height of the recession. Yeah. I worked for a company called Clockwork Home Services, which is the parent franchise company of 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, and Mr. Sparky. And fell in love with working with contractors and entrepreneurs and small business owners there. And really got my feet wet working with contractors at that company. Ended up getting them on Celebrity Apprentice in 2009. And then I went over to the agency world. So that's kind of how I got my start. And to this day, we're working with contractors. We work with B2B companies in this space, such as Bradford White, Service Titan, the New Flat Rate, lots and lots of companies like that.
Lots of great companies.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you guys do a great job. So it's really, we're so excited to have you on here because I think PR and marketing, which is what Lemon Seed does, is so important that we preach it all the time. You've got to build a good image. And a lot of times that's deeper than a well-wrapped truck and a good logo. And so this just really goes hand in hand. But I do know that they're hard to define. People have a hard time differentiating between those things. So there's public relations. I feel like there's marketing and then there's like true advertising. But what do you think is the difference in those three things?
Yeah, so I usually start presentations this way because everyone asks me that. The way I define it is advertising is what you say about yourself. So the idea is you control 100% of the message, whether it's paid billboards, paid radio spots, paid TV commercials, or direct mail. You're controlling the message, but you're paying for it. And the idea is you're saying your name over and over and over so that consumers see your company name everywhere, but you're paying for that. So that's advertising. Public relations, on the other hand, is getting other people to talk about you. And primarily the other people are leveraging the media. So getting the media to talk about you. And that's usually called earned media. We call it earned media, paid media, and owned media, which owned media is what's on your own website. So they all work hand in hand. Marketing is all of those things. It's advertising, it's public relations, it's your uniforms, it's your truck wraps, your brand as a whole, everything that you're doing to promote your goods or services. So that's kind of how I explain it at a very high level.
That's great.
But PR is the most valuable of those. It's also the most difficult to get.
Yeah.
Well, and you know something too, like, and I'm going to step on some toes when I say this, which I'm pretty good at that behind this microphone. But really, some companies, a lot of them, do not do
Clear the throat.
They don't do anything that's newsworthy.
Yeah.
And so, and it doesn't really take that much effort in the grand scheme of things. But at Lemon Seed, we're always pushing this community engagement piece. That's an easy way. A lot of companies already are good people, right? They already donate to the local little leagues and all those things, but they never tell anyone because they live the life of, well, you know, the Bible says not to tout when you support and things like that. So how should contractors view talking about themselves like this? Like, you know, is it tacky of me to alert the newspaper that I just donated a system to a widow? Like, how do you explain those to contractors?
Well, that is an excellent question because it's probably the biggest struggle that we have. We find out that our clients just donated $5,000 to a children's hospital and they didn't tell us because they didn't want to, pat themselves on the back. But really the opposite is true. So what I try to explain to our clients is that most of the time, nonprofit organizations can't afford PR. So they're doing their very best to publicize what they're doing using volunteers that know probably very little about marketing and PR. And they aren't doing as big of an impact as they could be doing with some publicity. So what you're actually doing by sharing that news is you're raising awareness for their organization and what they do and the good things that they're doing in the community. So your money is then going further, or your services are then going further because you've just impacted who knows how many other people and inspired them to give to that charity too. So it's a good way of thinking about it, that your good goes further.
Yes, it really does. I mean, and I do think you're always going to have people that are looking like, well, here they are bragging about it. You're always going to have the negative Nellies, out there trying to come for you. That's just nature of the beast. But, what are some things that you think contractors could do that you've seen that news outlets or these places, I don't know what I'd actually use this term here, but that these other people pick up? What types of things are contractors doing that really are getting noticed?
Yeah, so lots and lots of things. It can be anything from sponsoring an animal a week at your local animal shelter, or donating an HVAC unit to an elderly couple in the community. Or, it can be really anything that you're passionate about. What we try to do is we'll do a joint press release with the recipient. And the way that we craft the press release or the press announcement is from the recipient's point of view, because it sounds so much better. ABC nonprofit receives $5,000 donation from A Plus Heating and Air, versus A Plus Heating and Air donates $5,000.
Right.
It's just it's the same news. It's just the way that the story is told from the recipient's point of view. It makes it more impactful and meaningful, and also the news is more likely to pick that up.
Well, and then I think that just kind of further goes to show like why you should have an actual firm and a professional like you guys doing it for you, because you could so easily word it kind of the wrong way. I mean, like Crystal and I were just talking about a local, kind of tragedy that happened here in our community not too long ago. And it's like, they could have just worded this so much differently and it have eased the pain for a family and
been
the way
hero.
The community. Yeah.
Instead, they became the villain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was terrible.
I'm like, this was so poorly crafted. Well, I think a lot of times contractors don't realize they probably already are doing newsworthy things. So are there things, so I know the nonprofit side's easy. And then what about like when we win awards? Is it tacky to say, oh, great, they sold the most systems, Are those things that you should tout, like awards that you win? Or how should people approach that as a contractor?
Yeah, anything that adds credibility to your company is really good. So we have a lot of contractors who approach us and say, my exit strategy is probably 5 years out, but I want to go after every award possible because number one, it makes people call us first when they hear that you won an award, especially like a national award. Contractor of the year, or even the truck of the month is kind of a cool little local pickup. But it also makes the company more valuable in the eyes of a future company that's going to acquire you to see all of those awards. So those are important for our clients to go after, and that's one of the things that we do is help them identify which awards are good and legitimate, because there are more and more and more pay to play awards out there.
Yes,
No, for sure.
those.
And I think like you're bringing up all these great points of just like why contractors should somewhat prioritize being able to talk about themselves or kind of brag upon themselves. I think a lot of contractors, they like to be humble. And so it's just like not their natural to do it. But like you're bringing all these different viewpoints of like why you should be doing it. And I think overall, it's just kind of, would you agree that you kind of group all of this as like proactive PR?
Yes, like very much so. Positive, proactive, ongoing. Yeah.
Well, and another thing too, I think about, like, it's easy to say, blame the PR company. If someone says, I can't believe y'all talked about it. I know, I just let my PR company know and they thought it was newsworthy. It gives you an out. Blame. I don't blame Lemon Seed. I'll cancel a contract for you that you're overpaying for, and then just blame me.
Yeah.
I'll be the bad guy for you, which I'm not normally the bad guy. Normally I have to get Emily to be the bad guy, and she'll say, I'll be the bad guy for you. But it's I always, when I worked for my brother's company, which I still do on some aspects, but I knew that people had respect and started really remembering companies that pulled at their heartstrings. So telling the story effectively about why we were doing wreaths across America was because my grandfather was a veteran buried in that cemetery where they were doing it. So we showed up, and then naturally the news picks it up.
Yeah.
Because lots of people care about it. And remember, that's very top of the funnel. PR is very top of the marketing funnel. It's all about how you are perceived in your community. And so it's another piece of that. And, identifying where you should partner is one of the very basic steps. So if you're all about animals, if you've got an animal
as your mascot,
amen, why are you not partnering with animal shelters? Mm-hmm. And by partnering, I do not mean thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Literally, you could have $6,000 a year set aside, and you're going to donate to this and that, or sponsor a dog every month, and things like that.
And some volunteer hours or days.
Yes, let the PR company mold that to being newsworthy.
That's what y'all do best. Yeah.
Yeah. Just put the right motion into place. We have a lot of clients that work with vendor partners like Online Access that do programs called Giving Back Locally.
Yeah.
Where every month they're doing these promotions where they, whoever gets the most votes gets $1,000. The second vote gets $500, and the last vote gets $250. Listen, when you're a nonprofit, Emily and I both serve on nonprofit boards. You will happily take $250.
Absolutely,
that's a classroom kit, right? That's a roll of trash bags for the beautiful clean that you're working with. So there's power in those things. It just takes a little bit of effort on the front side, and then crafting those things.
More and more employees want to work for companies that give back too. So that's another thing, is you do want to share that, because you're competing for the best of the best technicians out there. And if they hear of all the great things that your company's doing, that just might make you stand out just a little bit more.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think from hiring inside of the industry, but then also like, I know a lot of contractors like, how can I hire outside of the industry? Like, I'm looking for just good, hardworking people with good work ethic, attitude.
Good attitudes.
And so, having that positive PR and promotion about it is what will attract that outside talent in some ways,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, I think it's important that they see an active company. So we deal with this all the time, and you probably do too. People will reach out and say, let me see, I need your help. Well, really, when we get to the bottom of it, they need operational guidance, not necessarily marketing guidance. And I heard a quote yesterday on a call with a web company, and she straight up asked the contractor, are you thinking like $1 million contractor or like a $10 million contractor? And I was like, wait a minute.
Wow.
She goes, I know you're only at 1 million, but why are you still thinking like you're at 1 million?
Well,
you've got to start having a vision. And part of that vision is the extension of building your brand. So some of us that are listening to this, maybe you're just getting started or your company's new, regardless if you're a home service company or not, or you're kind of new and you really don't have a lot of cash, but you're already volunteering your time. So what if you went out and worked, a trash pickup day in your community? That is good PR.
Well, and good social media. Like, you guys are all struggling for social media content and stuff. This is PR that you can maximize on your social media. Your marketing company at Lemon is always like, get us a picture, send us a video. Like, use these opportunities, find them, seek them out to where you can kind of double down on both.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can you think of a time that you've really seen, has there been a unique instance where you've really seen good response to something cool that a company did that they didn't expect to get the response that they got?
Oh, yeah. It's just hard to
narrow it down, probably.
Yeah. So, this seems like such a simple thing, and you see it, and we see it all the time because we're in the industry and we watch the news nationally. But if you get a wedding ring out of somebody's sink, or if you find a baby deer, in the HVAC unit hiding out or whatever, those things may seem like they're non-stories, but they blow up on social media.
They go viral.
Yeah.
Absolutely do. So it seems like, everybody's doing that. But when those things happen, if your technicians out in the field know how to escalate that, you guys, your social media team your PR team can maximize those things and really take advantage of it in the community.
Well, and just like how you said, like, y'all will spin it to be like, from the homeowner's point of view, my grandmother's ring was saved from the sink. Yeah, it just puts the right spin on it, if you will. Yeah, I love that.
So if we were to get started, like if a contractor, let's say they won in 2023, early in the year, they won an award. How far is too far from announcing those awards? Like, oh man, I just did these really great things. Is there kind of a, what do you call that? Like
a time frame?
Yeah. An expectancy of that?
There is. There's always a way to stick it in there, though. So if somebody won a really cool award 6 months ago and they just contact us, we're probably going to try to think of something recent that we can announce and then throw that into the story.
Okay.
Recent winner of whatever award. But there kind of is a timeline. Unfortunately, what I see a lot is actual news, like you rolled out electrical services to a 100-year-old heating and plumbing company, and you tried to do your own press release for 6 months and nobody picked it up, and then you try to call a professional. It's probably not going to get picked up now. You blew the chance. But, if you jump on those things or more, if they're coming up in 6 months.
Prep time.
Prep for it. Yeah. Start calling PR agencies. Start asking questions about what can we do and have a plan so that when you are ready to announce it, you can do that. And you can control the message too, because what you don't want is the news to be out there and other people kind of controlling the narrative.
Correct.
Yeah. You guys. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, speaking of needing to call an agency like you guys, I'm sure PR has changed so much in the last few years. PR back in Grandpa's day when he started the business isn't the same in today's digital world, and
instantaneous.
And the different challenges and things that we never thought we'd have to approach or, so how would you define PR or kind of some new things that you have to think about or why contractors should prioritize it in today's age?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of things that haven't changed, and I'll start with those things.
Okay, yeah.
Press releases still work. When I hear that they don't, and then you dig further, you find out that they're poorly written or they're written in too much of a marketing or advertising promotional way. They're not written in a newsworthy journalistic tone, or they're not distributed in the right way. You can't just throw a press release on your website and expect
Somebody pick it up. Yeah.
Which I have seen.
Wait, Heather, people do not just go search heating and air conditioning companies' websites.
They do that at night for fun?
For topic of information. I tell people that they'll say, I put that offer on my website. I was like, is that what you do at night? Go scroll tire companies? No, you got to tell people. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So the things that have changed are journalists are, gosh, I don't know the most recent math, but it was like 8 PR people to every journalist or something like that. It was crazy.
Wow.
But journalist newsrooms are shrinking, and they're using more and more freelancers, or they're using fewer journalists to write more stories. So what they want from PR professionals is a story that's written in the same way they would write it, so that they can simply take it and publish it. And that's what our team has done really well, is built those relationships with journalists. They don't even have to really look at all the words. They look at the headline to see if it's newsworthy, and then they often just publish what we've written, and they'll put their name on it. So that is something that has changed. They don't have as much time as they used to. So they're hungry for content, but they don't have the writers to write it. So that's changed. Another thing that's changed is a lot of digital agencies, especially in the home service world, are selling PR as a way to supplement their SEO and pay-per-click. So they're stuffing press releases with keywords. And that has actually come back to bite them, because they were doing that on some of the wire services. And now wire services have cracked down on the number of links you can have back to your website. And they're really approving or not approving press releases now.
Well, and it also changes the journalistic way. So, I mean, I graduated with a journalism degree, and I love to write. And I kind of got out of the habit of it, out of the practice. But I'm always going to read a human interest story. Yeah. But then if it gets super technical or super wordy for no reason,
salesy, even,
just word stuffed, I'm like, no, thank you. I would rather I will read a long email if it keeps my interest. And so I think that's a good point. We're stuffing all of this, frankly, repetitive and sometimes even useless or non-impactful words to the actual press release. And it really, like you said, it comes back to bite them, because when you're picking, let's say there's only room for one more story in this publication, and they look at this one that's written very journalistically and very stylistically, where it's human interest driven, and then this one's very wordy and technical, and you can just tell it's overwritten. They're going to choose the more stylistically written one. And then, like she said, they start cracking down. Like, they pick up on patterns. These are people that know what gets attention.
Yeah, you've alerted the principal now. So now they're cracking down on it. Yeah. They're more alert to
Y'all about to get a paddling in the hallway. Yes. So, I'm sorry. I think I interrupted your train of thought there. But, I do see that could be potentially hindering people when they're not doing those things and just giving good journalistic, well-written pieces. And also, like, that kind of leads into the next thing of, when I think of PR, I think of like, oh my God, help me.
You think of the worst thing possible?
Well,
the crisis,
like, especially now. So to kind of marry these two topics here, one of my biggest fears is, and I'm going to use this, I'm going to say, one of like my team members, one of my contractors' team members, inadvertently posting something on social media or in an email or getting videoed saying something off color, offensive, rude, and it just going buck wild. And me as an owner of both Lemon Seed and then other contractors, like, it's not even to do with you, but now it's 100% to do with you.
Yeah.
And like this weird balance of giving your team space and their personal identities, yet, oh my God, you're a true reflection of my company or the company. So what do we do, Heather? Like, what do we do? You said it earlier, so I'm going to steal your thunder here. It's about, if you already have proactive PR going on, I think you and Emily mentioned it both, then it's a little smaller of a hill to climb. But man, it's a really uphill battle when you've done no positive PR.
Yeah.
And the one PR, like you said this, when everybody else has been able to control the narrative, well, guess what? Here we are,
Yes, yeah. So, good example in the sports world is Peyton Manning. You know, whether you like him or not, he had a lot of good stories. And then I don't know if you guys remember when he had a crisis, it was in the news for such a short time and then it went away.
Yeah.
Like nobody talked about it anymore. And that's a great example because every single company is going to have a crisis at some point. It's just, it may not hit the media, but which we hope it doesn't. But there's always, whenever you're dealing with people, you're going to have mistakes. Whether it's a technician taking the truck out, getting drunk, driving it home, getting in an accident, which we see a lot, or something that seems kind of silly, like a technician leaving a dirty handprint on a wall, and then the homeowner taking a picture and blasting it all over Facebook about how this person disrespected her home. You know, we've seen that too. We've seen actual big time crisis situations where a water heater exploded and the person's house, you know, exploded, or he hit a gas line digging. So there are bad situations, and you know, you could kind of rank them on how bad they are, but ultimately, depending on how much positive publicity you guys have gotten over the years, that crisis is going to go away a lot more quickly.
No, for sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
We had a situation with a bad crisis. It involved a technician who was arrested in front of the truck. And fortunately,
Yes.
the journalist knew the company very well and respected the company. So in future articles and everything, when they showed the picture of him, they covered the name of the truck, which you can't, that's not something you can really ask them to do. They just did that because
that's relationship building.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, you know, when you've done the positive PR and building those partnerships and kind of rallied, I don't want to say rally the troops like in a negative way, but like you've built
raving
that
fans.
Yeah, you've built these raving fans, like people that will come to your side because like you've done all the good work and like done the things to celebrate others and promote. Like they're going to come to you in your time of need also, or kind of help rally, spin the narrative back in a positive way. So that's why you have to have that positive and proactive PR so that when the reactive comes in, you've done your due diligence to kind of help minimize it.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you think, like, do you have some advice on what are a few things that you see contractors doing that lead to bad PR? Like, hey, some of you are doing these things, and before I know it, like, I'm struggling to save y'all from these things.
She's like, oh gosh, where do I start?
You know, it comes down to a couple of simple things. What are your core values as a company? Do you hire and fire based on core values? If you do, if you really do, then it makes our job easier. We've had situations where, and especially now, people are desperate for technicians, and I know it's hard to hire good people. But we had a situation with a client who had a person whose personal social media had some offensive posts on it, and the homeowner looked to see who's in my home. I mean, naturally, you kind of look them up. You see who is this person in my home. She found terrible things about this person, screenshotted it, sent it to the news instead of going to the company, saying, look who they're sending out in people's homes. And something like that, if you have good core values, if you hire and fire based on those, it's easy to take care of a situation like that and make everybody happy. You can say that that's not, you know, not acceptable based on our core values, and, you know, whatever, you let that person go. There are situations like that are not the company's fault. It's not, you know, that's totally outside your control. But again, going back to the core values, that's one thing that if you can live and breathe those as much as possible, that makes our job easier.
No, that's great. That's great advice. Don't just say it. Don't just post it on a wall. Don't just, you know, do something with it to say that you have it. You really have to live by it. It has to be kind of a mantra. And, you know, it's difficult because especially in the trades, like you're dealing with people that it's really hard for them to grasp concepts sometimes, like, oh, this new age, or like, oh yeah, rah rah, sing kumbaya around a campfire, but really, if you live it instead of just saying it, that I think really resonates with people. And then it does help you make decisions on hiring, firing, or it should. I think that's great advice that I really haven't put into this PR perspective before, but it really is true, and tragedy happens. And honestly, your communities and your employees, your families, they're looking for somebody to give them guidance on how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Tragedies like, I'll never forget, there were the technicians at the home and the ex-husband showed up and shot him, killed him on the job. And, like, that has nothing to do with the contractor, but then all eyes were on that contractor. Like, you just had 2 guys get shot and killed. And he was like, I'm mourning the loss of my friends, but we are in such leadership positions that you have got to have resources already planned out, like a PR company that you can go to and say, my guy had a wreck. Somebody got hurt. Somebody said something offensive. And unfortunately, the sad part is we have to be prepared for those things to happen. And maybe some of us will get lucky and not have those things, but our people innocently will make mistakes. Heck, owners will innocently make mistakes and sometimes purposely make mistakes. You fire somebody and it ends up getting ugly. But, I think the biggest thing I've learned today is the proactive side.
Oh, for sure.
Making sure that you're not sleeping on, go ahead and putting it out there how good of a company you are, touting your positive side, and really trying to identify anything that could be a hindrance to that positive side in the future.
Are there any other things you might suggest, like when a crisis does arise, like how to, yes, the proactive PR, but what are some other ways to kind of help minimize it? Like, do you stop all advertising right now? Do you do this? Like, what
Post
are some
on
things?
social media? What do you do?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good question. Really, it depends on the situation. So we'll quickly assess whether social media needs to be paused or what. Usually, the very best thing you can do is as soon as you hear about something, whether or not it's reached the media or not, as soon as you hear about something, you call us, get expert advice, have a plan ready, have a statement ready. We like to issue written statements because that way everyone gets the same message.
Yeah.
What can happen is some journalists, especially like investigative reporters, are better at getting information and getting more from
Reading
you.
more into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you may not want to share all those details. So, we often work alongside an attorney because an attorney is always going to tell you no comment. But that could be one of the worst things you can
Absolutely.
do in a crisis. So having a written statement ready and not just blasting that out to everyone because everyone may not have heard of the news.
Right.
So just being strategic with who gets that statement and when and all of that.
Well, and taking a breath, right? Mm-hmm. When things go down, do not just pop off. Do not just issue a statement, right? Like, calm down for a minute, take a deep breath, and then issue an educated response. And some people, I'm going to tell you, some of y'all don't need to be talking to the press.
Absolutely not.
Y'all don't need to be, and you need a professional to guide you in what to say. Mm-hmm. And then most of you need to be quiet and let trust the process.
Yeah.
Of, I'm going to use the term healing from it, but I think sometimes we're so defensive. Because, if your guy, he might be a really good guy, maybe he's going through a divorce and he got drunk and he hit something and, hurt somebody. Well, at the end of the day, he did something wrong. I know you want to defend him. I know you want to defend your company. You made your statement. You just got to let it run its course, based off the guidance of the professionals. You cannot, because but every time you respond, it allows other people to respond back, and it just perpetuates the problem.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage, like, listen, calm down. Some of y'all just need to really put a whole muzzle on.
Yeah, that's good advice. I've had situations backfire where, an employee went on a Facebook Live video ranting about an employer, and then the employer responded with his own video, and quickly, when emotions are high, yes. or responding on a text message to a media, that becomes public. So, breathe. Calm down, try to get your emotions out of the way, and then think logically and strategically with the response is good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Heather, thank you so much. If people were interested in getting services from you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you to kind of set up a time?
Yeah, great. You can reach out to me by email, H Ripley. It's just like Ripley's, believe it or not.
What?
Ripley. H Ripley at ripleypr.com is the very best way. That way we can schedule a meeting, or you visit the website at ripleypr.com. And I'm happy to talk to anyone, kind of talk about what news they might have or strategic planning for down the road too.
And you mentioned your book at the beginning, Next Level Now. How can people get access to your book?
Yeah, thank you. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and then just recently Audible and iTunes as well.
Awesome. So lots of great resources to learn more from Heather and to reach out to her and maybe how your company might need some PR help. They do fantastic work and, happy to help you too,
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us today From the Yellow Chair, powered by Lemon Seed Marketing. Remember, we're your full service strategy and branding company for the home service industry. Stay tuned as we continue to interview other industry experts like Heather. And remember to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, tell us what you think as long as it's 5 stars. And until next time, keep sipping some lemonade. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.